So, all right, hello, and thank you everyone for joining us this Friday afternoon. My name is Mark Dunkel. I am a technology specialist focusing on SharePoint within Microsoft's U.S. education vertical, and today I'm joined by Vicki Clifford and David Norris, B2B Technologies, as well as representing the University of Florida. Our topic today will be covering how the University of Florida and B2B Technologies created the course catalog using the SharePoint 2010 platform. So about today, again, we're represented, and this is largely going to be presented by the partner and the University of Florida. I would like to thank the University of Florida. From a personal standpoint, it's always nice to see someone agreeing and sharing the information with other education institutions. It's really important, particularly with a product like SharePoint, to be able to share that. There's so many solutions that people are creating on SharePoint every day in both K through 12 and higher ed, that oftentimes I'm asked as a pre-sales technical resource, well, what is everyone else doing? And everyone is doing so many wonderful things, it's often hard to keep track of those. So when someone like the University of Florida steps up and wants to share with others what they have done and what they have accomplished, it really helps a lot of folks out, and I would like to thank them, and I know a lot of the folks that have contacted me this week about this webcast would thank them as well. So a little bit about this webcast series. What we're doing at Microsoft and our education vertical is we're trying to really show a lot of the education customers, both in K through 12 and higher ed, all the solutions that people are creating out there and all the great solutions that the partners have out there on the education platform. We have many, many partners, many of those partners in education, and they're really creating very rich and innovative solutions for this education vertical every day, and we want to begin to kind of expose that. As I mentioned before, this is a recorded session. If you wanted to go see the recording, it will be posted on a YouTube channel at SharePointAtEDU within 24 hours, and you could see this recording playback. And so as far as today is concerned, we're going to go with a demo. We're going to also have an interview. Again, if you have questions, please ask those questions via instant message during the demo and during the presentation. At the end, we'll open it up for Q&A. So with that said, I would like to introduce David Norris from B2B Technologies. David, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Mark, and just let me extend my thanks to everybody who's attending to have an opportunity to show some of the work that B2B has done. And of course, I definitely want to extend my thanks as well to the University of Florida and Vicki Clifford in particular, who's offered to help us out and take us through some of the work that they're doing here at the University of Florida, and letting us take a little peek in and see what the current status looks like. So we're not going to kill you with slides today. We want to keep this sort of interview style, and I'm sitting here in Gainesville, Florida with Vicki Clifford, and I'm still learning about this particular project. A lot of this happened before I joined, and good music. I'm going to try and figure out where that might be coming from. There we go. Sorry about that. Every now and again, when people join, they don't realize that music kicks on in the background. But at any rate, it's myself with B2B Technologies. I'm the Education Engagement Manager. I did actually come into B2B a little bit after this project had started, so I'm still learning here. And so this was a great opportunity for me to sit down with Vicki Clifford from the University of Florida and discuss the project in more detail. And we think it's great that you'll be joining us for this conversation as well. So for the sake of time, let's just go ahead and we'll get started. How about it, Vicki?
Sounds good to me, and we are very happy to participate here today and to share everything that we have learned. So hopefully this will be some valuable information for everyone out there who's considering SharePoint as their platform for a catalog content process.
So let's talk a little bit about University of Florida. Now, this is a little small, not well-known school, right? Somewhere down in
just a little thing.
Yeah, I don't think the University of Florida really needs too much introduction, right? Respected school, very large school as well. You know, home of the Gators and Gatorade, they have quite an expansive program here. They have 14 colleges and schools, plus 5 professional schools and graduate schools, so 50,000 students or so are being served every year. That's their annual enrollment, and they're rated as one of the top schools in a number of different surveys and publications every year. One of the best values in public colleges, ranked number 2 from Kiplinger's in 2010 there. So certainly a premier institution, but one that also comes with a lot of challenges as you try and coordinate all the different available course resources and different colleges and disciplines and majors and minors and all the classes that come along with that. When you have such an expansive program, it's certainly, I think, it introduces some challenges as far as things go.
Yeah, and just because we are big and we are well established and we are complicated in our programs doesn't necessarily mean that we always have the most efficient systems for information delivery. And that was really the biggest problem for us with the catalog. The printed catalog that we used to have was more than 500 pages long. When you end up paying for a catalog that large, which is printed each year, the cost was in the thousands, and it became so unwieldy that we had to figure out some economies of scale and better and more efficient ways to not only deliver the product, but create a process and a methodology that was easier for our users as well as for the public. And that was a project that we began 3 or 4 years ago. We realized that we had to have the catalog delivered via the web. What we did not really understand was the way in which we would ask our users to update the content. The process we were using was really tedious, very redundant, extremely time-consuming, and it really did not afford our customers, the colleges and schools and units across campus, the flexibility to control the content. So we set about researching some content management solutions and ultimately chose SharePoint.
So just to be clear about one of the things that you just shared and we've discussed is that so this was not, with SharePoint, this wasn't your first foray into having it on my catalog. You had done this with HTML, as you had mentioned, but with it in the HTML content, that sort of locked the content owners, the different schools and colleges, that kind of locked them out of the process of being able to have a direct hand in updating that content, and it forced only a select group of people to be able to edit it because you had the content embedded in HTML?
Yes, there really wasn't a select group. There was one person, me. Each of the units across this very large enterprise would essentially send us Word documents with track changes that identified the changes that they would want for the catalog, which numbered 800 web pages. And I would key in the changes manually. So the process took all year long. What we realized was we wanted to provide the structure of a framework, something guided for our users, but would give them the ability to make their own edits and do the work when they needed, how they needed, what they needed, according to their timeline, but would follow the business processes for the data capture that the Registrar's office, who essentially owned the data, really needed. So we really had to rethink the whole process, turn it back to the colleges, and just we would retain admin control.
So I don't want to give away the end of the story here, but you went with SharePoint, right?
Yep.
But certainly that wasn't the only solution you evaluated, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit just about why you chose SharePoint versus some of the other solutions that you looked at. What was the specific and unique value that SharePoint brought?
Well, we started off looking at some open source systems, Drupal and Plone in particular, and they did provide what we needed at the time in terms of what we wanted from a content management system. They would afford us versioning, track changes, a workflow, would allow the college units to make their own edits. So there were other solutions out there. But what we began to realize, and I will also let you know, we already owned SharePoint, and so that was something that we just started looking into naturally because it was available on campus, and we knew we could leverage it across the enterprise. But what we realized very quickly, SharePoint was a platform of services. It was far more than a content management system. And while we didn't need, and we certainly aren't yet using, all of the functionality that SharePoint provides, what we recognized with B2B's help primarily was that SharePoint could really be used for far much more than we were going to start off using it for. And with the success of this first project, the undergraduate catalog, we would leverage that success to drive other ventures. Ultimately, what we're moving toward is not simply a public-facing catalog that users across the world can use to access our catalog. We're looking for something that might provide data capture and retrieval for creation of a My Catalog concept. But first we had to set the framework and the structure, and that's what really was provided by the SharePoint platform. It would afford us the ability to scale for the future. And we are still learning, and I'm sure we'll be learning for years what we can do to leverage the functionality that SharePoint provides.
And I think you touched on something really interesting too, Vicki, that I know I see a lot of as I'm talking with different colleges and universities and school districts as well. Is that SharePoint, Microsoft licensing definitely makes it easy for the acquisition of SharePoint. And many schools already have this tool, have access to it. I think very often it might be employed in sort of a niche way, right? And my understanding is that that's how it was employed at UF
Sure.
to begin with as well. So there were pockets of it being used for collaboration. That's a really good use of it.
Yeah.
But I think through this process, you really found that it could do so much more. You'll notice I have the pie slide, or the jellyfish slide, as I like to call it here. This is a Microsoft graphic here that shows all the different capabilities that SharePoint can provide. I actually really like the way that you broke it down to me. And when I asked you this question as we were preparing for this, you said it's customizable, secure, and scalable. And those were things that you didn't find in other platforms.
And that's exactly right. We really wanted something that would give us on the admin side a lot of ability and functionality and control. However, on the flip side, we wanted it to be as easy as possible for the users. We don't want them to know anything about HTML. We don't need them to understand what workflow is or how it works. What they need to know is simply easy to use it for whatever they need to do, and the rest is up to us. For them, it looks just like Word or just like Excel, and that's what they need. The fact that we'll use it for lots of other things, such as the UF Administrative Network, just gives you an idea of what we can do with SharePoint now and in the future.
So we've already touched on a lot of this, so I don't think we'll go through everything here. But just to sort of sum up before we step into some demonstration, we have a look at what the UF course catalog looks like. Some of the key benefits that you've realized now after you've already been using it. So I understand that you piloted it last year with your 3 largest customers, your 3 largest colleges that you work with, and this year it's live, right? You guys are using this in production.
Yes, we actually have basically 3 site collections or 3 versions of the catalog that are all active. The first is what we call the current catalog. That is catalog 1112. That is the active undergraduate catalog that's available for the world to see. The second is available only to authorized users, the editors and approvers from the colleges and offices across campus. That is known as Future Catalog, and that is Catalog 1213, and that is the one where all the workflows are on and all of the college units are actively working on it. It will be published in May of this year. The third is much like a dev environment, if you will, and that's what we call our sandbox environment or site collection, and that's where we might be working with B2B or with our developers on site to create additional functionality for the catalog or to expand it in some other way for some other project. So all three site collections are active, and people are working in them every day and have been for well over a year now.
And I know that that was something, just one thing to highlight here that you pointed out is the canonical content source, that you wanted all of those different versions or, I guess, steps in the process, right? Maintaining the current catalog that's out there, and then updating the immediate coming year, and then also looking towards the future in ways that you could enhance it. You wanted all of those to be within one system, accessible in the same way, using the same workflows, the same types of tools, so that it would be easier to use rather than having these sort of happen independently from each other.
Absolutely. In many ways, they're like mirrored versions of each of the sites, but they're doing different things at the same time. And we go back and forth all the time, every day.
So we won't go through all this, but some of the others here, I know the auditing and version control, we'll look at that. We'll see what that looks like. It's part and parcel to the workflow. You mentioned role-based approach and the security that comes along with that.
Yeah, I think that you'll see very clearly the things that were most important to us were the ability to track the changes in the catalog, who did what and when, to establish version control so that we would know how the catalog has changed, and to be able to revert to an earlier version if necessary. We also had to maintain a level of security so that only those folks who have been authenticated and authorized for access would have access to the catalog. And even better, they only have access to the particular sections of the catalog for which they are authorized to see and or work. So that was a tremendous administrative advantage to the system that we afforded. Basically, the publisher, who happens to be me at this time, I can track everything that's going on at a given time, and yet any number of people can be in there doing any number of things at exactly the same time. So the ability for this to be a large dynamic data site collection, update, and storage of web content was a major change for us. We no longer had to rely on web servers and copies of the catalog and Word documents. We had a canonical source for all the data, and everything resides in one place. And what we choose to do with that is basically unlimited.
Absolutely. So I'm sure people are excited to see what UF has done. It's very exciting to see this in process here. So I think we'll go ahead and we'll step into a demo environment. First, just a quick disclaimer, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the call. What I thought would be best, since you are actually using these tools here, and we're going to see how you use it on a day-to-day basis. We're going to see what you're doing right now in that environment. And I know that one of the concerns leading up to this is you said I don't want to put in some extraneous catalog entries and things like that for the sake of demoing and sort of muck up the system. I've got people working on this, and it's all flowing very nicely. And so we really want to sort of peek under the covers and see exactly how you're working every day. That said, I think for people on the call who aren't necessarily familiar with SharePoint generally, and specifically how the workflow itself works, I thought it might be good to just provide a very quick overview.
Sure, that's great, because you'll understand the basic process, and then we'll show you how we customize it, or not really customize it. We provided a certain inherent driver or engine to the process so that our users wouldn't really have to start their own workflows or create their own workflows. We created them for them, and the second that they make their changes and submit a page, the workflow takes over from there, and it's automatically already set up for them. So you'll see a basic workflow that David's going to show you, and then we'll give you a peek at what we've done to make it as easy as possible for our users to be part of this process.
Sure. So in a moment here, one thing to talk about here too is that this what I'm going to show you, this Contoso University. Contoso is don't tell your kids to apply. It's not a real university. Contoso is Microsoft's fictitious university out there, and we actually worked with we meaning B2B Technologies worked with Microsoft to create this demo environment. This is something that the Microsoft sales team uses as they go and talk to other schools that are looking at SharePoint as a solution. The great thing about this is that this environment is available for anybody on this call to go and play around in. So this could be your sandbox to go and experience and see exactly how this stuff works. It's out there. I don't believe I included a link in my slides, but I'm sure that's something, Mark, that we can that Mark or I can publish, so that can be available to people on this call. So, you know, there's no smoke and mirrors here. You can go and you can see exactly how this works. So, to keep things moving along, I'll just take you through a very quick example of the workflow. It doesn't have all the steps. I'm going to ask Vicki to sort of chime in. This is very similar to what we worked with University of Florida on.
Yeah, it's quite similar.
So I'm going to ask you to chime in on some of the differences. Some of the things have changed a little bit. But let's just start off. Let's say I'm a prospective student or a current student at Contoso University or University of Florida. I might go out to the course catalog, which we have here as academic listings, which I'll go ahead and select. Just to make sure, it looks like I've got a message here. I just want to make sure that. Okay. Somebody put that in the it looks like Mark put the link to that demo site in the message there, which is good. So I'm going to minimize again, and you should see my screen again. So at Contoso University, I went out and I'm just looking at the academic listings. So this would be the course catalog in our example. Not quite as robust as what you'll see in a moment, but nonetheless an example of what you would see here. And this is all done with SharePoint. It looks like regular. A regular public-facing website, but behind the scenes there is a SharePoint environment. If you're familiar with the team workspaces and things like that, all of that is behind the scenes and really what's driving this whole thing. And so I'll let us take a look at that as well as we go through. But first, let me walk through the process so we can see exactly what this looks like. So I'm going to go and look at majors and look at some of the different undergraduate majors that are available to me. And we'll go to computer science down here. Computer science, there we go. And what we can see is that we have computer science. We have a description of what this major provides, which college it's provided by, the type of degree, how many hours is required to achieve this degree, what relevant minors might be a part of this program as well, and then a very detailed list about the coursework and that's involved here. But let's say that in our example here that this major's changed a little bit, and now we actually realize that the degree is going to take a few more hours. It's going to take another 4 credit hours, for instance, right? So just a very simple change. We want to change 120 hours to 124 credit hours that are needed for the degree. Well, you can see that right up in here, and you'll see this when Vicki. When we step into the UF environment with Vicki here in a moment, you can see that I have a sign-in option here. So I'm going to go ahead and select sign-in. I'm going to switch users. I'm in a demo environment. I'm going to switch to a user and play several different roles here. And the first role that I'm going to play is Lori Kane. And Lori Kane, in this case, is an administrative assistant. So she is going to be the first person who makes this course change here. Now, I think you use different terms.
Yeah, in our world, Lori would be the first person who would be authorized to access this page. She would be known as the editor in our schema.
Okay.
So she basically is the one who pretty much starts the editing process and will kick off a workflow that will then be delivered to the college level approver.
All right, so Lori Kane, our editor here in this case, I just logged in. SharePoint will, of course, grab your credentials if you're logged into the domain. So normally you wouldn't be logging in and out as you're going to see me doing here. But when I logged in as Lori Kane, our initial editor here, after I logged in, I got some more options that have popped up here. I've got these tabs up at the top of the page. And if you've used Office 2010, or many of the other Microsoft technologies recently, you'll probably be familiar already with this tabbed interface. So I can go through this tabbed interface, and it looks a lot like Office. So editing this for Lori in this case might not know anything about HTML, but she knows how to use Word or PowerPoint. And she wants to make a quick change here. So the very first thing she's going to do is she'll just go to Page and she'll select Edit. And what that's going to do is it's going to turn on some editing tools. And these tools should look fairly familiar. We've got all the rich text tools that we have there. We've got spell check, plus some other things. If I wanted to do some specific markup or something like that, I could embed, use an embed tag or something to pull something else in here. In this case, I'm not going to do anything fancy. I'm just going to come right down into the body of our text, and I'm going to change that 120 hours to 124. Hours there. So that's the only change I'm going to make. It's going to be kind of minor. It might be hard for somebody approving this to even, to recognize what's been changed. And so okay.
No, it isn't.
All right. So
I'll show you how.
So I'll see how we even pick up that small little minor change and make sure that we understand exactly what we need to focus on as we're approving this. So at this point, I'm just going to save and close the change that I made. Now, what that's done is that's saved it locally for Lori, right? So she hasn't actually published anything.
Correct.
So she could leave her work as it is, come back later to it, make some additional edits if she wanted
to. As often and as many times as she wants. And you'll notice that it says version 23.1. The .1 indicating that we basically got something in process, a minor version, if you will, but it is not yet kicked off to the next person. Keep your eye on that yellow bar. It really does keep you focused on what the status of the page is at any given time.
So this is our minor version, as you said, and I could come in and create more. But what I really want to do is just get this published,
sure,
and get this ready to go. So I'll go over here to the Publish tab, and I'm going to go ahead and submit this for approval. And when I submit this, this submit process is tied to a workflow.
Correct.
And I know that the workflow involves a few more people. I think there's about 4 different steps, but I know you have a number of workflows too, depending on
the type of page,
right? Type of content. So this one's a little bit simpler. Basically, what we have is we have a serial workflow process. So it's going to go to David Bradley first. So Lori Kane is an administrative assistant in computer science.
The editor.
Right, the editor. And David Bradley in this case would be the dean of the computer science.
The approver.
So approver in the UF world, and then it'll also, after David checks off on it, it'll go to Valerie, who is the final approver.
What we would call the publisher.
Sure. So we're going to walk through this very quickly here. So I'm coming here. I'm going to say, please approve.
And you notice how David is basically completing the workflow here with instructions. We have simplified this. We have a standard message that goes out to all folks who receive notification via email that they have a page waiting to be reviewed and approved. We also have the due date task assignment set at 1 week. If they do not approve the page within 1 week, they'll get a reminder. So we set all this up for the user. So basically all the editor has to do is publish the page to kick off the workflow. Obviously, the bottom, hit start. That's it. That's all they do.
Right. So the one thing we have is we do have a little validation rule in here, so it's showing that the date here is, from 2010. Obviously, that can't be the due date, so I'll just change that very quickly. But that, again, that's part of the process that you automated a bit more to make it easier for the editors. So I'll just go ahead and start this. And it's loading this into the workflow now. and we can see that the status has changed. It's now waiting for approval. So to make this quick, I want to get out of here. I want to
while you're doing that, let me tell you what happens in our system. The second that Lori hits start the workflow, an email is generated automatically to the next person on the list, the college level approver for us, and that college level approver will get an email that gives them the instructions, and then we'll give them a link to the actual page that they are to go in and to approve. So if that college happens to have 16 pages associated under their control, then ultimately the college dean would get 16 emails for the 16 pages to review. Now, I say 16, there can be 32, there can be 25. Once a workflow is completed, in other words, one set of edits, they can immediately start and do another one. They can do as many as they want. But the dean or any approver gets a notification via email of every single page that they need to review, so that there's no kind of forgetting something. You're going to get reminded, you're going to be directed to the page. If you forget, you're going to get another reminder. So we've really made it as easy as possible for our users, who are very busy people.
And you sent me an example of one of those emails that we'll look at here in just a moment. So I've logged in now as David Bradley, who is the dean for computer science, and he's got the change here, and it shows it's waiting for his approval.
And if you look at the page, you're not going to see anything on it. You're looking at a browser view. It looks like a pretty page. Ours are much prettier, as you will see. However, what you review is you want your approvers to concentrate on what's been changed. So they need to, instead of just going immediately and approving a page, I want them to review it. So you'll see that you go into the page mode to page history. And this I love. This allows every single person to see what has been done, by whom and when. So anything that is added is in green. Anything that has been deleted is marked out in red. So it's very, very easy for someone to see what has been changed. I'll also show you what happens when, in addition to just approving a page, the dean might decide, hey, I want to do some edits on my own. So we have made that process part of the workflow training that we give to everyone.
That's an important point. So as the dean here, I might be ready to accept these changes, but I could also be adding additional changes on top of there that would also need approval.
Yeah, we realize that some deans are very hands-on. They like to do a lot of the work themselves, so we very quickly had to work something in to where they could do that. Other deans, they prefer to have their editors do all the work. So they'll just approve it and kick the workflow up and then go back to their assistants and say, please make another edit. So we had to afford different ways of doing things given the level of, well, not only skill, but just kind of the work style of the approvers.
So if I'm comfortable with those changes now, I can come back as the dean, I can publish this, and I can go ahead right up here, and I can say,
view tasks.
I'm going to view the tasks here. That's right.
Yeah, and that's really important because part of our training, I do an initial training with every single person who has access to the system, but I've only had to do it once for everyone. A lot of my training is, but a lot of it really is, don't get carried away. Don't get too squirrely and start doing too much. Don't be clicking on too many things until you get your bearings straight. Our workflows are basically configured, so we don't want folks to start a workflow or cancel. So I pretty much give them certain instructions on what to do and a fair amount of warning on what not to do. I also tell them, but don't panic. We can undo anything. We can revert to anything. I can, correct it for you, so there's never any room to panic. And that meant a great deal to folks. They kind of realized that making a mistake was okay, and there was no mistake that could not be corrected. And we like that a lot.
That is nice, right? To get you free to go through and make those edits without going and messing up the HTML and the content and all that kind of stuff. So
we don't want them to touch the HTML.
So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to approve this. And then the last step in this process, I will log in as Valerie. And the main reason I want to log in as Valerie, she would do pretty much what we just saw David do. But I do want to show the history view that she sees, where we can get sort of a visual idea of what this looks like. So I'm going to sign in as Valerie here. And we will just take a very quick look at...
Yeah, when we get there, first, look at the... all right, you'll see there's a little bit of something that changes for me. As we go from the editor to the college level approver to the higher level approver to the publisher, the versions go from 23.1, 23.2, 23.3.
So each person who touches it gets another minor version.
And then when it is published by the publisher, it becomes version 24. And that's a real indication to everybody that that's a major version. And the workflow is completed.
Okay. So if I come in and I look at publish here, I might want to look at the status, for instance, and that's going to give me, I guess, a higher level view.
Yeah, this is one of the views we do not encourage our users to do because it's one of those things I don't want them to mess around too much with the kind of the structure of the page. The status is what I use a lot when I have to go in, when I get a call or an email that someone's had trouble. Oftentimes they say, I can't get the workflow to work. I try to start a workflow and it says there's already a workflow. You know, they've made a mistake. I go into page status and I can basically see, if you scroll down, you've got a visual display there, but if you scroll down, you'll see the history of the workflow on the page, and it lets you know who's done what, where it's sitting. So basically, right now, we can see that the first approver has already reviewed the page and approved it, and now it's come to the second approver, or Valerie, the publisher in this case. And we could, at any time, look up that we can stop the workflow, we can reassign a workflow, we can terminate the workflow. There are any number of options that I, as the publisher, have. We do not encourage our users to do this. It tends to get a little bit messy, and we've realized that at least as we start this year with all of campus, we want to limit the expectations. We don't want them to get frightened. So we control all of this. I'm always available by phone call or email, and we can get them right back to work within 2 or 3 minutes. It's really that quick.
That's great. So we spent some time in the demo environment here. I think now, with the time left, let's really focus on the UF environment. Sure. And I'll just close out of my browser window here. Things are a little bit hidden for me, so we'll see if we can get that to disappear.
So you're going to notice that Contoso University looked a lot like the University of Florida undergraduate catalog. We are quite proud of that. But ours, however, is the real deal, and we are really proud of what it looks like. We started out with the presentation of the catalog in the format that you see because we wanted to ensure that folks who were used to looking at the printed catalog and the way, the online HTML catalog and the way it had always been presented would see a seamless transition as we moved out of the HTML environment into the SharePoint .aspx environment. All they basically see is a different URL, but it looks just like the catalog always did, and it is formatted just like the catalog always did. What we did in terms of the taxonomy, though, was we had to really rethink the way the catalog was organized. In the past, the catalog was organized by major, by college, by minor, because it was just one person going in there and doing the work. With this catalog, however, I couldn't have it organized that way. The taxonomy had to be predicated upon folders, or in SharePoint, what are called libraries, that are grouped around a specific college or unit. So there would be a library for the College of Fine Arts, a library for the College of Liberal Arts, a library for the College of Business. And within those libraries would be sub-libraries or sub-folders that would contain just their majors, just their minors, just their college regulations. So that was a big part of what B2B helped us to do, to change our perspective on the taxonomy so that they could help us create the architecture that we would need in SharePoint. All right, this is the published catalog. An easy way to tell it in terms of the folks that I deal with. I'm primarily the college editors and approvers. The date, this is the current 11-12 catalog, this particular academic year. I teach them very quickly that the published catalog, which is the public-facing catalog available to the whole world, has got current in the URL. You will notice that there is no one signed on. This is the static version of the catalog that is essentially kind of not to be changed. I can, however, log in and change it if UF administration deems the change appropriate. But for the most part, when the catalog is published May 1, this is the static version. However, very quickly after this catalog is published, there's another catalog that starts for the next year. This is what we call the future catalog. Notice future in the URL. This is the catalog that is actively open right now as the users are preparing for the next academic year, academic year 12-13, and this catalog will be published in May of 2012, in a few months. You will notice that, well, I am already logged in. The nice thing about the SharePoint environment is that we integrate with our authentication system, which is GatorLink authentication, and with our Active Directory for the authorization for the roles. That's all inherent to SharePoint, and it is based on the configuration of my workstation. So when I log on to my network in the morning, when I then open up my browser and start working on the catalog, it recognizes who I am and automatically signs me in. Once I've signed in one time to the catalog, I basically don't have to do it again unless I change to another workstation. So you'll see that I'm here. That's a sign that I'm in the catalog and I'm ready to go. You'll notice some actions that are available. Most of the time, we encourage the users to come on in and they go directly to their portion of the catalog. Everybody knows it's a different picture. This is the next year's catalog, but they're not concerned with 800 pages. They're concerned with only their portion of the catalog. So everything is driven, as you see, now the libraries by the college. At this point, a user is in the section of pages for which she is authorized to access, and she can go in and start doing her edits. The process you saw with David to begin with. I'm going to show you a little bit about the taxonomy that I discussed. If you will look, this is going to give you the menu that you saw on the page. If you were to look, let's say, I'm going to go to academic programs. We'll go back to the College of Business where we were. I'm just going to show you all pages. So we've got different sections of the catalog for each of the units. There are 4 sections for each catalog. The first are their basic college information pages. The second will be, and those are the page you see here, overview, policies, and degree requirements. And then they've got majors, minors, and ALCs. So
let me just highlight that point, because this is one of the things that I've always found really great about SharePoint, is that in this case, what we're seeing here, right, there's a reflection of this navigation is a reflection of each of the individual pages that are contained within that library.
Correct.
And then as you make a change to a page in a library, right, it kicks off a workflow that's associated with that library.
Correct.
What I find interesting is that in this case, it's very structured, formal, important process for the University of Florida. But if we just had a Word document or something like that we were working with as a team, we would use that same format, right? So we'd have a Word document just in a folder somewhere, and we could have a workflow associated with it. So pages are really treated as documents.
Exactly right.
And
PDFs too. You can basically do any type of document, manage any kind of process that you want. It's all basically the same. Let's show them the email so that they can see. As I mentioned, I'm the publisher, so I am always the last person for every workflow, for every page in the catalog. It is my job to review the content, to review the page, to ensure that it's correct. Here's an example of a course description. The workflow was kicked off originally by the editor. It already went to the approver, the college level approver, in this case the registrar approver, since the registrar's office controls the course descriptions, and I have gotten an email that basically says there is a page for me to review as the approver. So the page is waiting for approval. If you go into page, again, I can't tell what's been changed, page history.
So this is all live. This is something.
This is live right here. This is a real. What's waiting for me to do. What you're going to see in these course descriptions. Let's see. I scroll down, and it looks like the registrar's office has added a new course to the Department of Spanish and Portuguese, and it is POR 3701. I would then review it to make sure that it's correct, and if it is correct, I get out of this mode, go back to the page itself. And I can then go into publish and view tasks and approve it. But I mentioned earlier that one of the beauties of the workflow that we have, let's just say that I saw the change that they had, but I realized that there's a mistake on what they did. Before I publish the page, I can go back into edit mode, and this is not exclusively for me, the publisher. Any of the higher level approvers can do this. Assuming the editor did 90% of what was needed but had something else that wasn't done. So I believe the course we looked at was POR 3071. Can't remember.
Sounds right.
Let's just pretend it's POR 3010.
Sure.
So this is the course that we looked at, and I realized that it was supposed to say, instead of for students, oops. Am I there? Yeah. It's supposed to say for faculty. And there was just a mistake. I can go ahead and make the change. I save and close. Thinking? Yeah. A little slow. And then I go right into the basic approval process. You click on View Tasks. This looks like it's grayed out. Huh.
So.
All right, so this is, all right, so let's just pretend, all right, we'll do the same thing. Let's just, I'm going to submit the workflow, and I'm the publisher, and this particular time, I'm not going to, you'll see that if I were to kick off a workflow, even though I'm out of order, it would go to the course's approver, and then it would come back to me. But let's just say that at this particular time, I don't want it to go back to them. I don't want to bother them with this, so I can just remove that step in the workflow process. Do it. Is it thinking? Okay, removing. I'm going to then start the workflow, knowing that it's only going to come right back to me.
So you have a lot of control over the workflow then.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you don't want to bother other folks there. But.
All right, yes, there was a previous workflow, which is exactly what we thought when I got the email, because that was normally it. So basically, we just had a little bit of a lag time when we were doing it. So I can go back. You notice the breadcrumbs here. Always very nice. You can use the back button, which is nice, but you can also just use the breadcrumbs. Let's go back to publish this time and just see. All right, we got a little bit of a glitch, but in this particular case, I would right into tasks and simply approve the page. That completes the workflow. At that point, the college, the originator, the editor, the originator of the workflow, the one who kicked it off to begin with, will receive a confirmation email that says that the workflow has been completed. I also encourage the users all the time, since many of our colleges have many, many pages, to always go into, let's view all pages. So this will give me the list of all of the course descriptions in this particular library, and you can see who last modified the page, when it was last modified, when it was created. You can look at the approval status and the progress.
So if I'm Diana here and I made edits to 5 different pages and I said, you know, I realized I made a mistake in one, I could contact you and you'd be able to find it very quickly. You could sort.
Sure, absolutely. More often than not, it lets them just track what they've done and completed. So if you'll notice, in progress, in progress, in progress, obviously these workflows have not completed yet. They're in varying stages. What they are looking for ultimately, before we go live May 1 and this catalog is published, everything should be approved, approved, approved. So it's a very quick way for them to look at each of the libraries in their sub-site and find out the status of every single page. And it's one of the things that I routinely send emails out. Hey, everybody, go in to view all pages and check the status of your pages. If you will look, just to give you an idea, remember now each of the colleges has 3 or 4 libraries in their or sub-libraries in their library, their big folder. Look how many pages are in just this one. And this is just 1 through 30, and if you'll notice, it continues. There are 3 or 4 pages. There are about 145 pages in this particular library. So keeping track of the status of your pages is an important thing that people really need, and I encourage them to get into that habit so that they can track their changes. No longer do you have to do it with a pen and a piece of paper.
And that's, from my perspective, that would be offer a lot of benefit to the user that they wouldn't necessarily, a user might come into this thinking, I'm so familiar with Word, I really would just prefer to use these tools that I know, but you're going through stacks of folders and having to maintain all these kinds of things where the structure itself helps you get to what you need to edit more quickly.
That's exactly right. Another thing that we've done that's available only right now at the publisher level, if you'll notice on my menu, the left menu of the catalog is slightly different for the publisher. At the bottom of the page, what I have are the power search tools. This is basically, there are 2 types of them. I'm able to search. Let's say that I find out that a course has changed. We've been notified by Tallahassee that ENC 1101 has been changed to ENC 1102. Normally, the change would be made in the course descriptions, but what many people out across campus don't realize is that course exists throughout the catalog in 80 or 800 other places. What I can do is go in and search ENC 1102, and as you notice, I can identify where in the catalog I want to check. Usually I check everything just to be on the safe side. I hit search, and that's going to tell me every single page throughout the catalog that ENC 1102 is used. I then have the option to do a good old-fashioned search and replace. I can automatically change every instance of ENC 1102 to 1103 or whatever it is. That, if anyone has been a professional editor, that is a very, very scary privilege. So what I do is I kind of force myself, I go through each of the pages to make absolutely certain of the context in which that particular course is used. So I can do a wholesale search and replace, or I can just click on the ones that are appropriate to use. The control is mine. So this is something that B2B did for us this past year, and we love it. It's made my life so much easier.
So, sorry to interrupt you there. I saw that somebody had chimed in with a question, so we'll go back here. One other thing that you had mentioned is sort of the student experience when they're registering for classes and how that's applied in. Is that something you can show us?
Yeah, it's not really. I mean, yes, I can certainly talk that the catalog is becoming more and more of an enhancement in registration. One thing that we have done right now that we are proud of, when a student is registering or advanced registering, the student uses what we call the schedule of courses. The schedule of courses lets them know the times and days that a particular course is offered. And those of you in academics know that many, many times the student cares far less about what the course is. What they want to know is when the course is offered so they can ensure that they don't get a Friday afternoon class or nothing before 10 o'clock in the morning. So the schedule of courses, all they can see is that this ACG 2021 is offered Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 o'clock. Yay, that's great. But what the heck is ACG 2021? They'll see a title in the schedule of courses, but no real explanation. What we have done is what's called, these are internal anchors, and if you click on them, they look like links, but they're not links that click out of the catalog to what they are. A student clicks on the schedule of courses on ACG 2021, and it sees pop-up that lets them know the full description pulled from the catalog for this course. So we've done this. If you go into this page, and again, this is something that we control through the registrar's office at the admin level. Course descriptions are not accessible to faculty and staff across campus. It's controlled by the registrar's office. But if we were to look at the HTML, that's why we don't want users in the HTML. You will notice on these courses, look at ACG 2021, class equals intern, and you'll see it. That is the static anchor that allows the students to click on the schedule of courses and be automatically jumped out of the schedule of courses and placed into the catalog to see what the course is all about. Then they can review any other course in the accounting department that we need. So this is something that we had been able to do very easily on the HTML side, but figuring out how to do it in SharePoint was something that we worked on quite a bit with B2B to help us. But it has been a huge success for the students, and in fact it's given us a real idea of what we could do to make the catalog experience more more individualized. So ultimately a student will be able to see their version of the catalog, not just the entire 800 pages of the catalog, but literally the catalog that Vicki Clifford would need because she is an English major in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, so that when I log on or into the system, I would see kind of a personalized view of my degree, the options available to me, the courses available to me, and that is something that we're using SharePoint to leverage, set up the databases that allow us to store all the data centrally and then to use the data for multiple purposes for multiple venues. So that's our phase 2 and phase 3 of this catalog project.
So that's great. So these internal anchors, it seems like something fairly straightforward, like you said, something that's fairly simple in HTML. Excuse me. Is the way to get them, get students to be able to quickly view the description, but what it's really about is about creating that customized experience.
Absolutely.
It's setting that in place for the things that you want to do in the future.
Absolutely. In fact, you're looking at a perfect example of the future. Right now, we still hand enter changes to the course descriptions. Ultimately, we want to interface the catalog with the curriculum inventory, which is the canonical source of all the curriculum information at the university. So when there would be data elements associated with each portion of a course description, the title, the number, the credits, the description, and when the registrar's office enters this information into the curriculum inventory, it would immediately upload and repopulate the information directly to the catalog. Again, a phase 2 or 3 for us in the future. But it's just part of all the things we've learned that we can leverage with the SharePoint technology, things that we didn't really imagine we could do as quickly or as easily as we now realize we will be able to do once we set up the structure of SharePoint appropriately. And that's why we relied on B2B, because it wasn't just doing one simple thing. It was ensuring that we created structure in the architecture that will allow us to scale up and do all these other things that we knew that our clients would expect us to do in the near future.
Right. So that upfront planning and design, right, looks a little bit beyond the implementation of what you've done here.
Oh,
to
sure.
Make sure that you're thinking well beyond and looking at what your roadmap is.
Absolutely.
So, I see we're coming up on.
Oh, and by the way, do one more thing. Just
sure.
Let's just get out of this and let's just show them the what we call. We can just close this window.
All right.
Yeah. I mentioned that we have 3 site collections. The third is our sandbox or our dev environment. And you'll notice, we can just close that too. It's the third one, yeah.
There we go.
You'll notice that this one, similar design, always the familiar, but this is a picture, a new image, and this is catalog 1314. So this is sandbox in the URL, and this is where we, in other words, this is where we developed the search and replace tools and the search functionality with B2B, and would blow it up for months here until we would then migrate it or move it over to Future, where it now resides and where we use it.
So that's great. So, it's interesting because the sandbox environment, the environment is really something that I think is familiar to a lot of developers and really IT-focused people in this case. This is something that that your users are using and sort of testing out.
Oh, yeah.
And within that same sort of experience.
Not users, or the developers. Yeah.
Right.
Who are
the editors and the other people who are making decisions about what.
Yeah, we get requests from the departments and colleges all the time of improvements that they would like. It's what really drives the whole process for us. We work within the constraints, the mandates of the Registrar's office, the university in the state of Florida, but all the time we are getting input from our users and requests to refine processes, make them more expedient, more efficient, and a lot of that is good old-fashioned trial and error, and then we need an environment that's safe, that no one is going to be in, but it's a real environment, it's a working environment. So this is what the sandbox is for us.
Great. So should we go ahead and jump back in and take some questions?
Yeah, I'm basically done, so this would be nice. Let's go back to Future and see what we can.
So, David, do you see the question starting with, does University of Florida pre-create each of the pages, and the editors only make edits, or do they have free-form editing abilities?
That's a little bit of yes and no. We do not allow any of the colleges at this point to create their own pages, nor to create new libraries. When I find out from Tigard Hall, our administrative office, the office of the provost, that we have a new major that's been approved, or a new minor, or a new college, anything. They give the information to me, and I basically set it up for the colleges in the basic structure and format that the page should be, ensuring that the page appears on the correct indexes throughout the catalog, and then I turn it over to the colleges to review it, refine it, change it. So can they change the content all they want at that point? Absolutely. Can I change it back? Can they make it red? Can they get rid of a table? They can do anything they want, and I can change it or do whatever Tigard Hall asks me to do. The idea is that basically the content is really controlled by the colleges. They know their material. I control presentation and formatting and style and any other changes that might come in from Tigard Hall or Tallahassee that the college might not yet be aware of, and then we just notify each other of what's happened.
So we have a couple more questions.
Go ahead. Make sure just as a reminder, please read the question, because on the recording you don't see the question.
Sure. So somebody's asking how, this is from Randy, and he's asking how UF starts a new year. Do you roll the previous year forward, or you know, how is that done? I think we saw a little bit of that with the
Yes,
future.
we do, and this is something that B2B was instrumental in helping us develop. Essentially, B2B created a PowerShell script for us, and we move future to current. And then we will also move current to what we call archive. And basically what that is, it's a script that allows us to back up the site that we want to move, and then we restore it to a different site collection. So it's kind of like a migration from test to prod, if you will, or from staging to prod. And then the future catalog sits in current. Current then becomes archive, and then future is still for a very short period of time, about 2 months. Future and current are kind of identical, and then we go ahead and we do the same process from sandbox to future to move the next year in. So it's kind of like we just move them forward and move them around.
So there's another part to his question as well, and I know this is something that we're talking about now, and we've looked at, which is he's asking about printing, and whether you're still able to print the copies of the catalog when the freshmen, you know, for freshman orientation and other types of.
Yes, we do, and it's an abbreviated, a really abbreviated version of the catalog. It's known as the Guide to Majors. Everyone knows that the content is not up to date. In other words, the second that we provide the content to the publication editor for the Guide to Majors, there are going to be continuing changes to the catalog. But essentially, what we do is we create an HTML version of what we call the print to PDF, and an HTML version of all the majors and all the minors. We then convert that to a Word document, provide that to the catalog, the publication editor, and she then formats that for a newsprint that is given to incoming students, transfer students, and freshmen and their parents for the freshman orientation. And we print about 10,000 of those. And basically they're throwaway documents. They're used that weekend that they come for orientation, and then they get rid of them. And then the students know at that point that they actually refer to the online catalog for everything else. So we use the Guide to Majors just for the preview weekends. And ultimately we will not do that, but the academic advisors still feel very comfortable with that printed Guide to Majors. So we're going to keep up both processes for a while.
We have another question here. This is from Deborah, just asking about the find and replace capabilities that you showed here. She wants to know if that's out of the box capabilities for search. And as I understand it, it relies on that, but there was some customization that was necessary.
Brad, I'm going to let you and the guys from B2B answer that question. I believe there was quite a bit of customization that B2B did for us, but why don't you answer this one?
Sure. Yeah, this is Brad Kasmer from B2B Technologies. That functionality that you saw for the search and replace does use custom code. It's written in .NET, and what it does is it utilizes the APIs that SharePoint provides to do the search and replace. And that's how we were able to tailor it also to be just, what we thought the course catalog publisher would need to see, in terms of number of instances and all of the reviewing and auditing that would have to take place.
Great, thanks, Brad. And Randy, thank you. We appreciate that. Glad you found it helpful. Randy just thanked us for the answers to his questions here. So with that, Mark, do we have other questions that are on the line?
Well, with that said, we are already 10 minutes over, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I just want to make sure that I thank Vicki. Thank you so much, and I would like to thank the University of Florida. This goes a very long way. I know there's a backstory here, everyone, where when I first met Vicki and her team, and I heard about what they wanted to do, and I was with B2B Technologies at the time, we were on site, and Vicki, explained to me what they would like to do. And of course, SharePoint is a content management system. Of course, people are using a lot of it for web content management, but I wasn't aware of anyone quite using it as a course catalog at that time. Now, in my head, I could work through all that and see how it could be a course catalog. And then to see this to fruition, it's really great to see. Now, there are, and the point of all this is there are so many solutions like that that can be developed on SharePoint. It's always good to talk to Microsoft. It's always good to talk to a partner. If you have any questions, I want to give you my information, and I can point you into the right direction. Just because there are just so very many solutions that are running on SharePoint. So I'm going to share out my contact information if anyone's interested, and you can go ahead and contact me or contact B2B Technologies, and we can go from there. So again, my name's Mark Dunkel. Here's my email address. Can you guys see my screen? Just to make sure that the sharing came over.
We're not seeing it on our end quite yet.
All right.
Here.
Okay. Is it loading, or is it?
In our view, it's not. It's still got
Okay.
our PowerPoint up.
Okay.
While he's pulling that up, I believe all the content here is available for downloads. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes. So let me know when you see my screen, because it should be loading.
Okay, it's loading now.
Okay, and then another area that we can go to see that Contoso demo that David was showing earlier is we can go to Microsoft PS for Public Sector Demos.com, and you want to select the education version of that. And so, again, here's my email address. If you wanted to see this video, it's going to be posted on YouTube within 24 hours. We're also going to put it on our Microsoft Education website. There's a little bit of a different process to get it up on our website, so we have to go through that process, but it'll be up there as well. And again, if you go to www.microsoftpsdemos.com, you can go ahead and test drive that Contoso environment with the course catalog built into it. Not as pretty or sophisticated, I admit it, as University of Florida's, but it gives you a really good idea about what can be done. And you can also download it into your own VMs on CodePlex if you go to CodePlex as well. So with that said, again, thank you very much to Vicki and to the University of Florida for sharing what you've done. This is going to really help a lot of customers out, and I really appreciate that.
Mark, let me just thank you as well, because
Yes, me too.
This has been a great forum for B2B to show some of the work that we've done, and I know that I believe you and Vicki maybe talked about showing this at other occasions, and the timing is just perfect here.
Yeah, and I really want to make it very clear that as proud as we are of our effort, we didn't do it in a vacuum. We could not have done it without the help of Microsoft, and certainly without the help of B2B. We each learned. We didn't think anybody was doing what we did, but we learned a lot from what other people were doing for other things. And a lot of it was just spent asking questions, making mistakes, trying again and again to come up with something that worked. And we have, and we're quite proud of it. But it's really our great pleasure to be able to share this. And anything we can do to help anyone, we're willing to do.
Yep. Thank
you
everybody
very
for joining, Vicki. Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Yep. And thank you, and have a fantastic weekend, everyone. Look forward to talking to you all again on the next webcast.
Thank you.